You so much for joining us on the Huddle. So to give you a background about this, my name's Dominique. This is Paul. We both worked in the basketball space for our entire career, and
Okay.
we came together when everything happened with COVID-19, and we're like, how are we going to survive without basketball? We love the community. So we decided to start what initially started with a webinar series called the Huddle, where each week we would host like a live Zoom webinar and invite different people from the basketball world to come on and talk about their career, but talk about, it's bigger than basketball. We're talking about that tonight. So it's been great. We've built this community. People have, networked through it. It's been wonderful. And we realize that everybody's getting Zoom fatigue right now. So you are actually our first podcast episode. So this is a monumental moment. We're switching over to podcast format. And it's nice because then we don't have to be like live. It's just us and we're having a
Yes,
conversation. So
That-
exactly.
That's great. That's
yeah. So we're excited. So, first thing we want to dive into today is, let's talk about what's going on in sports right now, the boycotting and outrage over Jacob Blake, another innocent Black man gunned down by police. And, it was a remarkable day in sports yesterday, but a lot has transpired since then. So first, and foremost, like, how are you feeling emotionally? I know a lot's going on and you're in the thick of it.
first, being in the bubble is mentally challenging within itself, just because you're away from family and friends. And I would like to say we get a firsthand experience of those who are in different states and different areas away from their families that aren't able to connect right now. I think that's a challenge across the world today. People miss just being social and normal within their families. So we're dealing with that in the bubble, but at the same time, we still get to do something and be around something we really love. While there's 27 million Americans without jobs right now, we are aware that although it is hard, we still have a job. We still get to do what we love. So just balancing that every day is a challenge for the young women and the coaches here, and the young men and the male coaches here. And so I think everyone's doing a great job. Very proud of this league. We've always been very diverse and ahead of the curve, and you can just see it's getting better. And now you see from the NBA players and the lifestyle they live and how they're dealing with the bubble. So whenever you have this much time and you start seeing, I grew up with understanding the injustices against my culture, but now the entire world gets to see it because everyone's stuck right now. And
Yep.
when you have protests and you feel like, okay, we know things are going to be slow to change, but you don't really think you're right after George Floyd that you're going to see a video as poignant as we saw that video with Jacob. And I honestly didn't watch the video because I have to protect my mental state in here. But once I saw the video of his sister and she said, "I'm not even crying, I'm just numb," I could
Yep.
so resonate with that because I was numb. And so then I went to watch the video and it just totally drained me. And I'm glad I did though, because the players, I had to address the team. Sandy's Australian white. She asked me to speak. She's like, I really don't know what to say, but I could feel their pain and I was able to speak at practice. And we just knew the girls were drained.
Mhm.
And, so we said, whatever they want to do, we're going to support them. The Phoenix organization was going to support Phoenix Mercury, whatever they wanted to do, because we knew the girls mentally were drained. We knew it was going to be an ugly game, but we also know that this is our livelihood and our job. So kudos for Washington Mystics. They had the first game, and the Minnesota Lynx and Atlanta Dream, they came and they did what they felt at the moment.
Yeah.
And I believe that people understand with the Black culture, sometimes the way we've been brought up in society, it's hard for us to acknowledge feelings. I think a lot of cultures get to be able to feel, and sometimes we just do because we're so emotional. And who knows if it was the best decision, but it was the decision that they came up with. It was the decision that the NBA came up with. And I'm speaking just for the WNBA. And I think it was a powerful statement to the rest of the world.
I agree completely. I mean, we said it's bigger than sports. And I think what really stood out to me is like, it's disgusting that there's still a lot of people who can't see, the reasoning behind this, but it's like, taking away and pausing sports is like, okay, well, you can't look at us for entertainment like right now.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
you have to really like get this message that we're saying, and it is bigger than basketball. And I thought, you know, as a non-Black woman, it was so inspiring to me to see, um, you know, it's not the responsibility of athletes right now.
Yes.
It's the responsibility of our government and officials. And that's a whole nother conversation that we could talk about for hours. But the fact that like pushing through the pain and how you may feel emotionally and like taking that big decision where the pressure's on you, not knowing what's next, like that was a big move. So when the NBA announced, you know, and the Bucks came out and said, okay, we're boycotting this game, was there immediately chatter within the WNBA bubble, or had there been talks about potentially boycotting before you had heard anything about the NBA?
No, for our young ladies, like I said, we had shoot around that morning, so they were really drained, and they were saying, some of the African American women were like, "Chas, we have to say something. I mean, I just need to talk about it. I need to get it off my chest." And we've been very cognizant of, we have to allow these players to speak. Obviously, there's just via Zoom, they have opportunity to speak with mental health experts and of that nature. But we knew the young ladies were drained. You know, we really did, and I guess on their drive over to the gym, and that's our only time out of the bubble, it's about a 20-minute drive. You know, those players really had time to really think about it. They weren't focusing on the game. So I can't really say what was going on through their mind, but I know our girls were challenged that morning in shoot around. And then we had the 10 o'clock game. So not only that, we got to get the text, and we got to, you know, interact with everyone's emotions. So that was like, people were texting me. I'm sure people were texting the rest of the coaching staff. Sandy said people were texting her, what are you going to do? So I'm sure the players were just overwhelmed with texts. Like, what are you guys going to do? What are y'all thinking? So for them, just to make that decision emotionally was very hard. It was challenging. And as you know, in life, you never know if you make the right decision, but you got to make a decision. And they made the decision. And I think it was, like I said, it was a powerful statement.
Mm-hmm. And the ripple effect that it had across sports was what I thought was so powerful. And it made me just, again, this is bigger than a ball. You know, I think David Stern was somebody who always said that, but it's like, in this year alone, basketball has shown just what a leader it is amongst all sports, and the athletes across, you know, the WNBA and NBA, you know, it makes me so proud. And then you all also organized a candlelit vigil last night as well. Was that was impromptu too?
Yeah, that was impromptu. Everyone gathered out on the lawn. It was a beautiful experience. And believe it or not, most of the men stood up and talked at the vigil last night, which I would have loved for ESPN to have on that. Bill Lambier made some great remarks. Steve Adams made from Indiana. I think it's Adams. Quote me if I'm wrong. Sorry, Steve, but I love you. He's been with the WNBA since the inception. You know, I called him coach because he was there in '98. And he made some remarks about, you know, his interactions with the police and just how being here in the bubble, he can admire us really off the court, like everyone, because we're all seeing each other. And he all sees like just how strong and how beautiful and how diverse we are, and how we're very adamant about change. And he loves it. And he has 3 daughters. And then Darius from the Atlanta Dream spoke too and just said, Avi from DC played in the NBA, and he has his daughter here with him in the bubble. And he said, it's our us being here and his daughter being able to see us and thrive every day has, you know, impacted his daughter's life and impacted his life and made him look at the WNBA and just, you know, Black women in general in a different way. So it was awesome to hear them speak from a male's perspective. And I was happy with Bill saying when he played, you know, athletes were closeted. I mean, because I kind of came up in that time. I remember Craig Hodges, you know, with the Chicago Bulls. I followed the NBA with my dad. So when I made it pro, the first thing my dad was saying was like, okay, baby, you made a lot of sacrifices, and we teach truth around here. But just know, when you say something politically, you could lose your career. And he was very honest and open with me about that. And so I tell these young ladies, I didn't have that voice. There are things I wanted to say, but I also knew that it was going to be something similar to Cap. Like, if I said something, for me, that was the the most money anyone ever seen in my family, and that kind of platform. So that was a personal choice for me. Like, kudos to the Caps and the Craig Hodges and people who spoke when it was even more difficult. So I'm glad that the ladies that chose to come to the bubble and play, that they're able to use their platform to use their voice and not only be heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's important. And, the togetherness is, I think, what makes all this powerful. And before I kick it over to Paul, we've been following today, and I saw, on TV earlier, that players came out and they said, okay, today in the WNBA, this is a day of reflection. This is a day of, mobilization. This is a day of action. But they believe that, playing is the right step. So can you talk a little bit about that too, and why, you all believe that playing is going to, get the messaging across and the action across that we need to start taking?
I just have a simple, short answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
I could say a lot, and I feel the young ladies here, and I feel what they want to do. I'm glad that when you think about young people right now, they're so very emotional, and everyone's speaking. And the wiser people will always tell you, I grew up around a lot of, like, you got to think, you got to think about it. You can't base all your decisions off of emotions. So just the fact that they took this day to say, hey, what do we really want to do moving forward? Yesterday was emotional, and it was the right decision for just then, for that time. And so what I think they learned is that they have, first of all, they know this WNBA was built off of women like myself who didn't see a WNBA coming up, who there wasn't a professional league for women. So they're still trying to bank on that and have a strong foundation for the WNBA. That's always in the back of these players' mind. We're not the NBA. We understand that. We still have a long ways to go. So I think they understand that the price of submission for using their voice and being able to use this platform is to play. That's their only price. That's their only sacrifice, is to play. And they love playing. So continue to do that. So in a short answer, I feel for them, their price of submission, and everyone has a price in life.
Right.
And their price is to play.
Right.
They're sacrificing to play, to continue, to have their, and to continue to promote change with their Say Her Name campaign and bring awareness to all the injustice. So I'm super proud of them. And although it's a sacrifice, and most people are like, oh, they're playing, it's still a sacrifice. I think Swin Cash said it well today. We're not, if someone asks you to give up your job, to give up your livelihood to promote this and to promote change, would you do it? And so a lot of the athletes always have to give up their livelihood to show they're behind the cause.
Yeah, so that's not the end all be all. Like those things don't equate.
They don't equate. Yeah, they don't equate. And I tell people all the time, there's not going to be an Asia Wilson. There wouldn't be a Chasity Melvin or a Cynthia Cooper if it wasn't for the WNBA. If it wasn't for that platform, there wouldn't be a LeBron James. And LeBron James would be a lot like a lot of my male friends who were great athletes who didn't make it. Just a great basketball player without the NBA. So the way he's using this platform, it just coincides. But there are some things that at the players, and I think that's what they're realizing, is not only the platform, but get the owners and the people behind the NBA and the WNBA to help create change as well. And I think that's something that they will do strategically. And the owners and people within power behind these leagues, not only in the NBA and the WNBA, but in the NCAA, have to help create change.
Yeah,
they really do. And so I think, the boycott, postponement of the games yesterday made that become really aware for everyone, because there were a lot of families who had to tell their young kids, why is there not a game? Why am I not seeing LeBron James? Why am I not seeing Diana Taurasi play tonight? Why are they not playing, mommy? Why do these girls have bullet holes in the back of their T-shirts? And for most African American families, that's a constant conversation with kids. Why? It's not a constant conversation with people, most people of non-color. I won't say all, but most people of non-color. They don't have to explain that to their kids. So that probably wasn't a easy conversation for anyone.
Oh no. And I like too how you brought up about the owners, because I agree, like a lot rides with them, because you have influence in politics in a way that like a lot of people don't. You know, they're connected to different cities and things. So you want justice, like make the calls to the people that you know and use your voice, because these teams in different cities are big, you know, money makers, and they are, you know, what people come out for. So it's like that's on them. And I think that's what was powerful to me, is like, you better send a statement to, you know, a lot of these owners who are mostly white, you know, and haven't experienced the same plights as some of their players and coaches have.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's just, you know, it's if people would understand from the owners to the top and people with power, it's not so much our differences. Like, we're gonna have differences. Like, America is just ingrained with so many different cultures. The biggest problem is the silence of so many people. So like, we're using our voice, and like I spoke to the girls yesterday, as our allies, you know, your silence at home, your silence with someone that has influence, if you can call legislation, if you're giving them $2 million a year, like, you can create a lot more change than we can. So, and that's a form of silence if you know you have the ability to say something. And it might not create like a whole, entire spectrum of change, but it will create some, and it will start getting things movement and give them some sense of like, hey, yeah, we need to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
As you all know, in America, money talks.
Money talks. I think listen, you bring up a really good point, and it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's essentially the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing, right? Yeah. So that's like literally you're silent, right? So if you see an injustice and you don't do anything, I'm not saying it's as bad as the person doing the injustice, but it's close, right? Like, if you're not doing anything, it's almost, right?
Yeah, everyone's silence is equal, and that's across the board. You know, yep. with children, with what we see with like in the school systems now. You know, like, just, you know, education has needed almost intervention and like making it better across the board. Reform. Now we aren't in the school. Kids can't go to school, and now everyone's seeing, wow, okay, maybe teachers do need to get paid more.
Oh,
right? But you know what you're saying, you're you know, so although there is terrible COVID and the pandemic we're going through, I think the world had to come to this point where a lot of things can come out to be seen, and not to take any, you know, attention away from the racial injustices that are going on in the world, but just so many parents are struggling right now with kids going to school virtually, and it's just not people of color. It's not people of color. And now, you know, people of color have been saying, hey, we need this, we're not getting the resources. Teachers have been asking, we need more pay. We're counselors out here. We're, you know,
everything.
Yeah, everything. And
coach,
so
counselor,
are home, like, I've been, you know, I haven't been doing my part to support the school systems, and the world sees that. So it, like I said, you know, silence anywhere is just isn't good. If you have the ability to make change, then you got to speak up. What part of history do you want to be on?
Yep, exactly. Dom, you mentioned it earlier. I mean, there's a lot of things that are ass backwards about this country, but one of them is that we somehow expect athletes to affect more change than elected officials, and that should not be the case. And Twitter is not exactly the place to go to restore your faith in humanity. And so I had to eventually get off last night. But, you know, I know Dom asked too, but specifically around the owners and even today, what were some of the things that the athletes want to come out of this now? You know, let's say even in 6 months, the playoffs end, the season ends, whatever. What are some of the things that they're thinking about that they want to do to affect change?
I think they just want, collectively, they want support. They want, most owners and those people of that status don't really use social media. So not from that standpoint, but just be more interactive. Even if it's, you know, a well sought after interview, or just them coming out to speak on those higher platforms of like, what can we do to bring about change? You know? So I think that's just it. I mean, I believe the players understand owners believe in them, because there are a lot of things that they do to support the athletes and provide this platform. And but I think they just want to see a little bit more to use their voices.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, once you've been up here for so long, you feel like, well, I'm doing this. And it's hard. So, but I mean, I can't speak for the owners. I'm not a billionaire owner. I don't know, but I'm sure that that's what they would like more. You know, like, why is it always us? And we need the owners to make statements and just show things that they've done. I think New York, just their owners just pledged a certain amount of money to some grassroots organizations to fight racial injustice. That was big.
Mm-hmm.
That was huge. New York Liberty owners. So that's a start.
Yeah.
That's a start.
Definitely. The pressure is needed. And I think what I love specifically about, you know, the WNBA and the messaging you mentioned earlier, the Say Her Name campaign, but like, come on, it's been over 160 days now since, you know, Breonna Taylor was murdered. And I love seeing W players speak out specifically for Black women who there's been, you know, have been lost in some of this narrative. So, you know, how else do players and coaches right now really want to, like, you know, spread awareness and, you know, celebrate Black women?
They just want to continue using their voices in the interviews. They have regular Zoom calls weekly. They have been hands-on with the women who started the Say Her Name campaign. And it's funny, I was talking with, not funny, but it was very interesting. Breonna Turner, I'm not a player, so she's like, Chaz, these Zoom calls are so informative. You know, we learned so much. You know, there's so many Breonna Taylors. And we're just as naive, some in our culture, of just how often that happens. So for this, it's very informative for them, and they're also learning. They're also learning things about themselves off the court and things they may want to pursue as far as becoming a part of the political environment.
Yeah.
And that would be cool.
I think that'd be amazing.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. You know, hindsight's always 20/20, but the criticism for Kyrie's comments a couple months ago is now looking pretty, whatever adjective you want to put in. We'll leave it at that. Where did you land on whether or not the NBA and WNBA should come back a couple months ago?
Yeah, I mean, my friends, they're like, "You're going to the bubble? You should be fun." No, I'm going to the bubble. I am. And I hope we have an NBA season. I hope we have a WNBA season. The African American culture, and I will speak more so for the women, because the NBA is a billion dollar organization, and LeBron James is going to have a microphone in front of his face whether he plays or not.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the WNBA players are not, and I realized that very quickly once I retired from playing in the WNBA. Once I no longer had that platform, I was still remembered by my diehard fans as a celebrity, as someone with a voice and someone who spoke up for things. But once I was away from that platform, you're not seen, you aren't heard. It was back to the way it's always been. And so for me, although I don't disagree with some players that didn't want to come to the league, it's everyone's personal decision. I'm proud of the players in the WNBA and the NBA for resuming the season. And not only that, but coming with a strategy. And people can say what they want, the Black Lives Matter t-shirts, the Say Her Name t-shirts, the Breonna Taylors. We're spreading awareness. I say, people say, well, they're not true activists. And people come to me all the time about, if you're a true activist, you got to be 100%. And I agree to a certain extent. If you claim yourself as an activist, I do say, if I claim myself as a professional basketball player, I'm putting 100% of the work in to be the best professional basketball player I can be. And there are activists out there, grassroots activists like to Say Her Name, the women who started this, who live and die, say her name. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to downplay that word activist. But now we have, and I want to give a category. I think someone wrote it, like, we have athlete activists.
Yeah.
And that, and they're doing the best they can as an athlete who is trying to be. Their main goal is to be the best professional athlete they can be. Mm-hmm. That's their main goal, and that's what they give most of their life to. But on the same time, they can also be an activist within their platform and with what they can do with their power, because you can only do as much as you can with the power you have. Right. So now I have a bigger voice. I've just seen it from once when I retired to coming back and coaching in the WNBA. I mean, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast using my voice if I wasn't coaching in the W. And so that is extremely important. And so for me, that was my only angle. Like, yes, the NBA and the WNBA should play. And yes, we should still keep making them aware. And last night was a powerful statement that we could not have had if we were all sitting home, going to Target and the gas station, like nothing else is going on. I mean, you can't go to a concert and big groups aren't coming together. So this is it. This is it. So I was for that. I get what Kyrie was saying, but I think he was saying it emotionally from he didn't see strategically how it could help the movement.
Yeah.
But I never disagree with anybody's opinions, like especially the athletes, because I'm an athlete and I know I'm emotional, and I also know that what we go through as professional athletes. I mean, we kind of don't fit in anywhere. Like, I am that athlete just like LeBron James that came from nothing, that came from humble beginnings. And then I was on a platform with a lot of people with money and power. And you still are an African American and you still don't have their power, so you don't quite fit in. And then when you go back, the humble beginnings are like, you made it. Like, what do you know? What do you know? In between fighting these stereotypes that put on us, and we don't really fit in anywhere, because we know what it's like to be African American. We know what it's like to face discrimination and injustice and come from very humble beginnings. But then we know what it's like with people of privilege that don't get any of it, and you're also in that platform with them. So I have a sense of grace with athletes when they come out with their statements. And although I agree with some of what he said, I was on the mark like half the season and continue.
Yeah. It's almost like people look at athletes specifically as like, you are, not human, which is how, our country has made a lot of Black people in America feel. And it's like, this is a humanity issue. So, again, so much respect for these men and women. And what I love for the W specifically is all of these women have needed their flowers for years, and they've been fighting for women's rights that, it's like people are applauding the W players right now. It's like, do you know how long they've been fighting for women's rights in sports? It's like, come on now. So it's to me, it's like you said, the athlete activists, and I think it's amazing. And again, just makes, all of us just feel so proud to be associated with this game that is showing that it has a bigger place in society, in this world, other than just entertaining people because you can put, a ball in a hoop. So,
very true.
Amazing. But, we will definitely talk more about this. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about you and your amazing career, because that's why you're here. You are a woman with many gifts. You're one of the reigning pioneers of women's sports. You're a WNBA All-Star. You're an ACC legend, NC State Hall of Famer. So take us back to the beginning. Like, when did you first pick up a ball and say, okay, this is my thing?
I'll never forget it. I was 11 years old in elementary school. We had the intramurals, and my teacher asked me to play because I was tall. And the first time I made a basket, I went home and I said, Mom, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play basketball. And she said,
love it.
Yeah, she was like, what? I was like, no, I'm gonna play professional basketball. She was like, well, they don't have professional basketball for women. I said, don't worry, they will when I grow up. And so I heard that story over and over again. And she remembers it because, we were always running home. You run home and tell Mom everything you want to be every other, week. But I stuck to it. I didn't put the basketball down after that. My grandmothers were like, you can't marry a basketball, Shug. I'm a true Southerner. Southern grandma's like, oh, Lord, she's going to die old maid. But, but they supported me. My grandmother was very instrumental in my cousins wouldn't let me play because only the boys played, and my grandmother went out there and she said, do we all eat together? And they said, yes, ma'am. And he said, well, if Chasity doesn't get to play, then you guys don't get to eat. And so I didn't have any problem getting on the court after that.
I love that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, you prophesized over the WNBA at the time.
Yeah, I had put it. Yeah, my dad's a minister, So I learned all the speaking into existence, all that. I mean,
Yep.
life coaching, all this is another the political version of the Bible and speaking stuff into existence and having a vision. So I grew up in the church, and so I learned all of that very early, and I really did. I mean, anyone from my hometown will tell you she's been saying this since she was 11 years old, and just
I
That's
love it.
incredible.
and so for
That's
me,
awesome.
and that's what led me to write my book about my faith and how much I think of that foundation helped me become the person I am today. So, yeah, that's how it all started. And I was fortunate enough to get a basketball scholarship to NC State.
All right, so perfect transition. So let's go back to NC State. Two-part question. One, what made you choose the Wolfpack? And then who do you enjoy beating more, Duke or Carolina?
Oh, well, that second part, Carolina any day. Anybody. I want to beat that Tar Heel Blue any day. I'm okay with the Dukies, but yeah, Carolina, I love beating them. I chose NC State mainly because of Coach Al. It came down actually between Chapel Hill and NC State because they had two of the most iconic women head basketball coaches. So if you grew up in North Carolina, you rooted for KL and Sylvia Houchel. I was also fortunate enough to go to a lot of KL camps. My uncle would take me to the camp, so I was a KL kid. So I'm pretty loyal person. I'm a Southern. I was loyal. So when it came down to it was nail biting. My mom wanted me to go to Carolina. My dad was like, just go wherever. And I chose NC State just because Coach Al and I shared pretty much the same faith, and we had a great conversation. And I just felt for me that was the place to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, you alluded to it. You definitely spoke it into existence because you were a first-round draft pick in '99. WNBA starts in '96. I mean, what was that like? I mean, and the ABL did exist, but the WNBA is a different beast altogether. Were you going to try and play overseas if the WNBA did not start in time? Like, what was your mindset?
No, I actually, and a lot of people forget this because it folded the year I went, but I actually chose the ABL over the WNBA.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah, so I got drafted
right
out of college by the ABL. And I mean, a lot of people just, forget that whole scenario with the ABL, but I actually chose the ABL over the WNBA because all the players I looked up to were in the ABL at the time, and I wanted to go beat them. And I didn't want to go overseas. I wanted to play the seasonal basketball season, and that's why I chose the ABL, and it folded 2.5 months later. So I tell people I got my dream job and lost it within 3 months. So I had to grow up really fast.
Wow.
But I was fortunate to get drafted by the WNBA, and it was amazing. So I told my mom, I said, not only did I say I was going to be a pro, but I got to play in both leagues. So I joke with her all the time about that.
I love it.
You did eventually get to play overseas as well.
Yeah, and I played overseas. Yeah, so I told her I played everywhere pro.
Yeah,
I've been everywhere. Yeah, played pro for 14 years. Like, my favorite country is Israel. Enjoyed Italy a lot, Spain, and also enjoyed Turkey. So those cross-cultural experiences changed my life. It was the first time too, as a Black woman, that I really felt celebrated and felt special, and you're okay, because they don't, our culture is not really over there. And I know all the cultures they all have their racial injustice and different things overseas and stuff, but for me, it was just an eye-opener, just learning about different cultures from a small town country girl. So for me, I love my experiences over there. I have my family home. My family's over there who support me, and they're calling to check on me now. So that was a tremendous experience for me.
Yeah, I mean, it took you everywhere, and that was going to be our next question. Like, how would you compare both experiences? Playing in the W and then playing overseas? Because assuming they're different, but you probably got different things from each.
For overseas, I guess I got to keep that same kid-like passion that I had in college. Although they do want to win, it's still, the cultures overseas are just different. Italy, it's like Damani, we eat and drink, win or lose. Here is, in the States, who's gonna get your job? That is the next contract. It's a little bit more stressful. So overseas for me, just being able to relax, it's still just a game. They want to win, but at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
You know, they fought wars over there. They're still fighting. So for them, like, okay, it's basketball. Okay, we know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you didn't make shots. You know, here it's
Right.
just to be like, it's pretty much the end of the world. You know, we're losing. They're going to fire the coach. They're going to do this. You know, so for me, that was the main difference. Just being able to engulf myself in the culture, and like I started drinking wine in Italy. You know, I had vodka in Russia. Had
Mm-hmm.
never touched alcohol because of my faith, but growing up in my culture, for me, I I was such in a box because in our culture, you know, alcohol in my family was really a generational curse, or it had been. So my parents were really like, not only because of our faith, but like we're not, this is not going to affect our family. So going overseas, it wasn't as taboo. Like, you know, the young ones had wine at dinner, and it wasn't something that was such a curse for them or had damaged
Yeah.
families. So then it gave me a new appreciation for like, so it just opened my mind and opened that box that I had been in, and just helped shape me into the woman I am today. So I really enjoyed my overseas experience. And the W, I love it just because the family could watch it. You know, I'm on television, people, you know, they give you that brand and that sense of being a celebrity. But I mean, it also came with a lot of burden and a lot of different sacrifices, because you have the celebrity factor, but you're not making the celebrity money per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the WNBA can sometimes for female athletes be a gift and a curse, but I enjoyed it. And I think for all the pioneers of the WNBA, what it has come to this point, and seeing the women being able to use this platform is something special for me, and that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What this is a tough question, but if you had one of the biggest life lessons that you learned from your professional playing career, what would it be?
Just to get out of your own way.
Hmm.
You know, I
That's a
think
one.
that's just it in life. Get out of your own way,
Mm-hmm.
and be present
Yeah.
in my career. If I had to go back, even the successes and the failures, if I could have been more present with just what's going on right now, and I think the players now, you know, I look at them every day and how these ladies train and what's going on, just being present with today. You know, I felt like for most of my career, I was always looking for the next year, okay, we're going to win next year, or get to the playoffs, or the next contract, or, okay, there's a new center, they're going to take my position. And so for me, I've learned in my second post, you know, retirement, to just get out of my own way and be present with each opportunity, and just be the best where I am.
Yeah. That's
Good advice.
advice we could all take, whether, you know, we're an athlete or not. I think when you were talking, comparing your experience in the W with playing overseas, it's like international cultures, like America is just so competitive, and like, what's next? What more can we get? You know,
With,
take. My family's Italian, so I have a lot of family in Italy. So it's like,
Okay.
you know, when you were talking about that, I'm laughing because I think of the last time I was there, and it's like, why, Domenica, why are you on your phone? Like, you know, it's like just stuff like this that we don't realize, and that
Yeah.
being present, it's like, if you're not present, you can't make change to the situation that you're in, because you're living in a problem or in a what if.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
For sure.
so that was good advice. And, you know, so you learned this in your playing career. You always knew basketball. Like, did you think too, okay, I'll play and then I'll transition into coaching, or was that something that just naturally happened?
For me, I wanted to get into commentating. I wanted to be an analyst. I majored in communications at NC State because I wanted to be the next Robin Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my second plan. If there wasn't a pro team and I didn't play pro, I wanted to be Robin Roberts. She was my idol, still is. I'm a huge fan of hers.
Yeah.
And once I retired, it was really challenging in both areas, because I had played overseas in the WNBA for almost 14 years. 12 in the W and 14 overseas. So I didn't get on-camera experience, and I didn't get experience coaching. So it's very challenging to enter in either one of those careers. So I started my own podcast. I started a blog from a player's perspective. Try to get experience when I could. I worked at a local television station in North Carolina. I did a sports show, co-hosted a sports show. And then I missed the pro game. And so I felt like I want to get into coaching. And I didn't like some of the challenges that came with being an analyst. I felt like there was a certain brand, a certain look that I needed to look. And after playing overseas and in the W so long, for being like, I felt like my authentic self. It was just like, man, like they're not paying me enough to put on this weave and all this makeup. And I can, you know, I was saying I can do it and I can have that look, but it's so it's and TV somewhat is you go into character, but I don't think many non-women of color feel that way because they have that look, and a lot of Black women have so many different looks.
Yeah.
That's kind of the look, and I'm so happy to see now, you know, first African American who's a bald head and sports analyst on ESPN. Like that's great. That was taboo when I was coming back out, and definitely like my natural. Like you still don't see natural commentators. So for me, I didn't really use my voice to express that much, but that kind of bothered me. So I was like, so I probably didn't challenge that status quo as much, and then I just kind of concerted my efforts with coaching, and I knew I feel like I would be a good coach, and that's when I was able to get into the NBA assistant coaches program.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. So what consists of that program? How long does it last? Like, what are you doing? What tell us all about that.
Yeah, it was a 7-month program, and I was actually working a 9 to 5 at the time when I was accepted. But I was 3 females with 18 other male former NBA guys, and it was a very informative experience. Not only just learning about the strategies of coaching and learning what coaching entails, because you're a little bit naive as a player, you know, or like, okay, whatever, like I'm good, I'm gonna go out there and score. Like, you know, good, like, okay, this is what you want to do today. So learning just everything that goes on behind the scenes, developing a system, how to scout players, using databases and different things. So it did help inform me and teach me about, you know, the ins and outs of coaching. And also I got to form relationships with the NBA guys, and I understood that we lived the same lives. I mean, they got paid a lot more money, but they dealt with the same challenges that we dealt with on and off the court. So it was a great experience all the way around. But at the end of the day, it solidified to me that basketball is basketball. Yeah. Because I always feel like, okay, well, men's basketball must be different because women don't coach it, or they're doing something more, or they know something I don't know, you know. And then, you know, I finished the course and I developed these relationships with these guys, and I'm like, basketball is basketball. Basketball speaks all languages. It's still the same sport. It's still the same X and O's. These guys are just tremendous athletes and play at a much higher level and above the rim, but it's still the same game. So that's what I took from it, and I learned a lot. And I think that program really did help me. It gave me the opportunity to join the Hornets and their G League staff. So it was a great experience for me.
That's amazing. And being with, you know, all of these men too, I'm sure was an incredible thing. Just like, hey, I'm a woman and I can talk this game better than you right now, probably. But, you know, playing and working with a variety of different coaches, like I'm sure you all take different things from each other, whether it's something, you know, specific in the playbook or just a tactic to help the players off the court. So, you know, what's one of the most important kind of things you've taken from another coach that you've either played for or maybe who has mentored you?
From my mentors and just who I play for is you got to be fair, and players have to trust you. At the end of the day, players have to trust you. I don't care how much money they make. They got to trust you. And if they don't feel like they can trust you, you can't create a culture and you can't have players buy into your system. So first and foremost, and that's not something that's easy to build with players either. And so for me, that's what I've learned. So I found from those coaches that I respected so much. I won't say like, because most players don't like their coaches. The really good ones, they don't like them, but they respect them. Is that they're fair and they're consistent. And so for me, that's what I try to be every day. I try to be fair. I try to be consistent. And That's not easy because you lose and players aren't doing what you want, what you think they should do. But when they see you're fair, you consistently come in the same person every day. That's where the trust builds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that you say fair. I want to ask a question about that because I had a chance to work for Ed Cooley at Providence. He's
Okay.
still one of my mentors to this day, like one of the greatest human beings walking this planet. And he's also one of the funniest human beings to ever walk this planet. And he would always joke about the offense with our guys, like, this is not an equal opportunity offense. Like, just because you're on this team does not mean you get 12 shots. All right. Like, and I'm just thinking offensively, but like fair how? Like elaborate on fair.
I think fair is holding people accountable.
Yeah. Okay.
And whatever it is. I mean, if you're getting 25 shots but then you're an ass off the court and you
that
don't
doesn't work.
Provide good leadership skills and you're doing crazy stuff and I can't hold you accountable. I mean, I'm holding the same person accountable when he's getting 3 shots.
Yeah.
But, if he's a better leader and then or he's doing something and I'm saying something to him, but I'm not saying something to you. I mean, at the end of the day, what I've learned, and this is since I played, and like I said, I had a lot of wise people that were part of my village growing up is, like I said, you don't like those people. You don't like coaches that hold you accountable, but I'm so grateful for them now. And I'm only successful because of those few coaches that held me accountable. And I think young coaches and coaches getting into this league, coaches that are coaching now in college, they're walking a fine line because they're like, we can't say anything to these kids or we can't, but we're really hurting them. These kids want to be held accountable, but they won't tell you that.
Yeah. Yes, they
I would never
do.
Like, some of my coaches have passed. I was able to tell them. I was able to tell Coach Al, but at the time, like, I hate my coach. I hate my coach, Mom. Like, we all called our parents and said we hate our coach because they held us accountable. Now kids call home and tell their parents, I hate my coach, and they're fired. So they
transfer.
But and it's not hate, like that's a strong word, but we would tell our parents that. But once we graduated those 4 years, like who they made us, and I talked to all my teammates from NC State now, like we're successful because of what we learned in those 4 years.
Yeah.
We bounced back because of how they held us accountable. We make choices and decisions because we stop and we think about it because of what a lot of our coaches taught us. And I don't think that should stop in the pro world. I don't think that should stop. No. So with to answer your question, just accountability. I don't care if you're the star or the last person off the bench, and I don't care if you're the equipment manager. You gotta hold people accountable, and that's what creates the best cultures.
Absolutely.
For sure. Switching gears a little bit. So in January, the WNBA and the PA negotiated a new CBA. Yeah. What are some of the big takeaway pieces for people that don't know?
The biggest takeaway is people don't know that you got fired when you got pregnant. And I mean, obviously men have already been able to see, like, men put that as like pregnancy is like, okay, you lost your job in general across the board. Just not the WNBA. So the fact that women now, I mean, I know there's a huge perception that the entire WNBA is gay, but even gay women have babies. And there are obviously a lot of heterosexual women and women who get married and have families and get pregnant, and they're thinking like, you're talking to your husband, I got to hold off, I got a season. So now they can plan a future, with kids without the going back and forth. Do I want to play or do I want to have a kid? I'm gonna have to give this up. So I thought that was very profound. I think there's still a long ways to go, but it was a start with just acknowledging that area. Secondly, just the benefits that the players have as far as resources, going back to school. All the girls have graduated because that's a prerequisite to get in the WNBA if you're not coming from overseas. So we're all highly educated, but for some of the players to be able to go to Harvard Business Law School and have those other opportunities because the WNBA and the NBA have huge resources that they can tap into. Having the girls be able to be a part of that and be able to make money in the off season where they don't have to go overseas, I think is huge. And so those are two of the biggest things. Obviously the pay, people want to talk about the pay. But pay with revenue and sponsorships. I'm glad they increased the pay. I think that's big, and that's what everyone wants to talk about. But at the end of the day, we still got to make sure this league is solidified business-wise and have a strong foundation. And like I follow the NBA with my dad, and people don't understand a lot of people forget the history of the NBA. Players played hurt because they got cut when they got injured.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't getting paid. The NBA was not always a billion-dollar organization.
Right.
You know, so they don't understand the history of how the NBA started. And just because we are in this new millennium where everyone gets everything fast and money is made so quickly and people become viral and stars, there still is a process in building a league in any sports arena. So I'm happy for the pay. I do believe there should have been an increase. So I'm happy for that. And we want to build on that and sustain it and just make the league a lot better.
Definitely. Those were huge changes. I was shocked personally when I found that out about women when they got pregnant, because it's like, that's discrimination. You know, like gonna say it how it is. And then now to again see, like, I've loved seeing all the women in the bubble with their children. It's like it's phenomenal. And the rise of the orange hoodie, we're joking, like, where can we get this orange hoodie? You know, so seeing, again, I love to say giving them their flowers, but it's like, these women have always been tremendous athletes. They've always been doing the same thing as men, and they've been living like as females where you're reproducing and you're doing things that men don't do. So I think it's amazing. And again, you know, maybe you didn't get everything you wanted, but it's a step in the right direction. And that's the most important thing, is progress.
Progress is the most important thing.
Yeah. And, you know, like, I'm gonna fangirl out for a little bit, because you right now with the Mercury, like, you're coaching not just like some incredible athletes across the team, but some of the best with like Skylar, BG, and Diana. You know, I mean, they're just pieces of this team. What makes this team right now so special?
The diversity, but not just the stars, but also the players that don't get a lot of the the fame and attention. Being able to play with such big stars, you know, I think they're learning a lot, and I think they help our stars, you know, because you know, Diana's getting up there. She's in her 16th year, so she can look back at them or where she started, and, you know, seeing them want to be great. So I think we have a great balance of those players trying to get in the league and solidify themselves and, you know, have a career, and then the players who are stars and who have worked their way up to become leaders of the WNBA. So it's great. And then having Sandy played and myself played, I think we're just a very passionate team, and we know what we're working for. So it's just been great.
Absolutely. I mean, I was been watching, and I'm like, it's everybody's game right now. I mean, but I'm so impressed. Like, the Western Conference is stacked. I'm like, this is just, it's amazing. Like, both bubbles is just amazing basketball right now. I'm like, I love this. So, and we saw, you know, Diana wearing Kobe jersey the other night. So can you talk about, you know, Kobe's impact on the women's game, and maybe specific impacts he had on any other player on your team?
Definitely had a huge impact on Diana. She told me they really came together in 2008 Olympics, I believe it was. She got to spend time with him, playing cards and just talking to him. And she said she didn't know, like, someone was as competitive as her, psycho on the court. She said, but she said he was really psycho though. Like, looking at DT, I didn't say it, but I'm like, you are too, DT. You're psycho. But okay, whatever works. But just talking with her and her getting on the bus, and I always give everyone that before they get off. And DT's the last one, and she's got on her Kobe jersey. She's like, and so I was like, okay, she's gonna have a good one tonight. You know, I'm going like, I told Sandy, don't worry, Diana's got us tonight. So just his impact was tremendous. I was a Kobe hater. Actually, I hated Kobe.
Really?
Yeah, because I was for Shaq.
Oh, okay.
Wow, okay.
I was Shaq. Okay. I was a center, you know. I love Shaq. So from that point on, I was like hating Kobe. But I hated him in a way, and I wrote about it on my Instagram post. I hated him in a way that I wanted him to prove me wrong. So I bet you can't do this, Kobe. And he always proved me wrong. And then he did it. Like post-retirement, I'm like, okay, he's a great dad. Okay. And then he started talking about women's basketball, and I was like taken back. Like, what? Okay. I'm like, okay, like, is this for your brand or do you really, really support women's basketball? And so I was so hoping he was going to prove me wrong. And then, unfortunately, that accident happened and took his life. And so for me, what he started though, and just seeing that has has a resounding effect on all of us. Just for an NBA player to be so openly, I've always known the NBA players have respected our game. And playing overseas, I always was friends with the guys overseas, so they understood we could play. And like I said, we lived the same type of lifestyle, and dealt with a lot of the same things. But for Kobe to use his voice and his platform to really support our league, and to say, and Kobe had all the fans,
Yeah.
the misogynists, the heterosexuals, like he had all the fans. So he put it in their face like, I'm a girl dad, I'm supporting the women's basketball, and we need to do better.
Yep.
And that was impactful in so many ways. And unfortunately, it was such a short. They all get going taken so soon. But I think it made an impact, especially on the younger kids, because younger kids are looking like Kobe's with his daughter. So now young boys are treating their sisters a little bit better. They're like, oh, you want to play? No, my sister can play. So he had an effect across the board, and I think it was very instrumental. And so for Diana to have that great game that night, she said, Chaz, I felt so much pressure. She's like, I can't believe I missed 2 free throws. I'm like, you're crazy. I would have had my 34 points and been like, yeah, missed 2 free throws too. Would have had 30.
Yeah.
I would have been joking around. DT is like, just pissed about it. Like, missed 2 free throws. I'm like, I think Kobe was okay with it.
Yeah, that's her Mamba mentality though, like striving for the absolute.
That's her Mamba mentality. I'm like,
yeah.
You carried us. It was great. It's a great night. I'm like the Italians. Tomorrow, let's go drink now. Let's go.
Yeah.
Great, like, But yeah, so that's his effect, Mamba mentality, and like I said, there's so many players, old school players that I played with that had the same Mamba mentality as Diana and Teresa Edwards and Cynthia Cooper. Pretty psycho too. So
yeah.
And I say psycho in a good way.
Oh, we know. It's like you gotta be.
And no disrespect to the taboo word used in mental health, but like just so ingrained in being the best and wanting the utmost success as a professional athlete. Teresa Edwards, Cynthia Cooper, and Diana Taurasi are 3 of the players that I know for sure kind of had that same Mamba mentality as Kobe.
Diana is different. I mean, I grew up in Connecticut, so UConn's everything. UConn's all this state's got. So we grew up liking basketball, period, and we watched whatever basketball was on. So there was nothing. And then when Diana came, like, Gino had it rolling and everything, but when she rolled through, like, that was like that brought him to like another stratosphere. Like, she was out of this world good.
Yeah, I see it every day.
And yeah, I'm jealous.
Myself when I played, I'm like, okay, maybe I was too hard on my guards. I'm like, just contest the shot, play some defense. Like, when she wants to score, she's gonna score. I'm sitting there on the sidelines, we're coaching, and then Sandy's like, oh yeah, Diana, just shoot. At the end, you draw. And Diana does something like, how does she do that? I mean, the Kobe game, I looked up and I'm like, wait, Diana has 26. Like. It's just
crazy.
Great. So I'm a witness. It's great to have played against her and to try to stop her. But it's also even more of a learning experience to coach someone that with that mentality and to see their work ethic and see how they are with a team. So for me, it's been a great experience.
Absolutely. We love her. How do you hope as a woman who has had an illustrious career, and we're going to talk about what you do outside of basketball before we wrap this up, how do you hope to pave the way for other Black women in sports and beyond?
For me, I just want to continue using my voice and platform to mentor the players while I'm here. Just be a listening ear, remind them of some of my failures, things that were challenging for me. Off the court, just work with organizations where there are young people that I can influence. whatever resources, people I know. Like I've helped people that are graduating. If someone DMs me and is really serious, if I have a connect, I try to connect them with that person who's starting out. Obviously, I can't do that as much now coaching in the pros, but whenever I can just lend my hand, I do. But I want to start something that's more powerful. It's more so for African American women is just building their confidence and self-esteem. I'm really high on that as far as life coaching and that. So that's an area once this season is over that I want to push a little bit more. I have my life coaching certification. I think there are some ground foundational principles that you have to have, especially as a Black woman in this world, to overcome certain challenges, stereotypes, sexism, misogyny, all that kind of stuff, homophobia, just for them to love themselves. Because if I didn't love myself and have a certain level of confidence, I wouldn't have been the woman that I am today. So I want to kind of just push myself, get myself out there in that area more, and push those kind of things.
Yeah, that's incredible. And, your whole persona of just wanting to help people and inspire, again, that leads me perfect into the next question, which you are a published author and a life coach. So how do you balance, working as a life coach with basketball? And then we'll ask you about your devotional book.
Yeah, well, Don, the life coaching was very challenging because that's what I was really passionate about. I've been on Tony Robbins before he was Tony Robbins.
Wow.
I mean, I was on Anthony before he was just Tony.
Wow.
Back in the 80s. For me, and just like I said, my faith in the Bible. The Bible is like the blueprint for everything, whether you're a Christian or believe in Jesus or not. I mean, it's just got so many lessons in it. And so for me, once I tried to do that after retirement, I got a lot of negative feedback. Like, you were a professional athlete. What do you know about life? Or you just had an easy life. You travel the world and you get this and you get that. And, so, and for me, that was the first time I kind of felt fear or like discouragement, like something I can't do. Basketball was so confident. I spoke being a pro in existence. And for the first time, I had the challenges that I think some of my friends and family have of when I'm pushing them, just go start your business, or, you're good at that. Go start your t-shirt line. Oh, you're good at this. I'm always encouraging, inspiring. They're like, Chas, you don't understand. And then, so for me, that life coaching was my, I guess, kind of failure moment, like where I had to push against so much fear and so much negative feedback. And I'm now at a point where I'm like, you know what? I don't care what they think. I know I'm good at this. I'm going to push it. And now with the WNBA season, we have that break. It gives me a better opportunity just because I know I have this where I'm not thinking, okay, I got to get this coaching gig. I got to do this. I got to hustle. And I can spend more time with my strategy of what type of life coaching area, what's my niche? Like, how do I want to inspire? Who do I want to work with? And so up to this point, I've been given free consultations out. So now I'm just going to try to push it and build a brand there. And I don't care what people think or what people say about it.
Absolutely. Well, you'll be great. I'm like, we'll probably call you because words have power, and people need you to speak life into them. Fear is a real thing, and I think we don't realize how much it cripples you. And sometimes it's because of things that other people have said to you your whole life that you're internalizing. So having a coach to help you through that, I think is so needed and amazing. And I'm sure with your coaching experience, you'll really be able to help a lot of people. And then, tell us about your devotional book. I'm a woman of faith, so I cannot wait to get my hands on a copy. I love my devotionals in the morning.
Yeah, it's just something God placed on my heart. I spoke a lot, and I had that when I was fighting the fear of people getting negative feedback about life coaching. I'm like, wow, I didn't really think people looked at. I thought you just kind of automatically think people know your story because I was African American women from a small town, rural area, very humble beginnings, and it wasn't anything negative. I think people kind of resonate when you have a bad story of like, I was adopted, my parents left me, or my parents were on drugs. I didn't have any of that. I had a village that raised me, but I was still from very humble beginnings. on this road to success. So I wanted to write in a book and just share my faith and how that my foundation helped me through a lot of my trials and errors. And I knew I wasn't a writer. I'm a much better talker. So I love devotionals. And so I said, I'll write it on a devotional platform. So I have 40 devotionals, and I share a story. It either happened on the court or off the court. And then I use a scripture from the Bible, because again, I think it's the blueprint for life lessons, and how that scripture resonated with me and kind of got me through that time. And then I end each devotional with a prayer, a general prayer, and a life lesson. So I also give like a politically correct like life lesson. This is what I learned. And it's just very simple, basic read. I wrote it really with the youth in mind, so it's not anything deep. Anyone can pick it up. It's short chapters. It's funny. I get my guys from the G League, my time with the G League, they got the book, and they're like, "Oh, it's okay, coach. It's short. I can read it." I'm like, guys are so funny. I love them though. But they enjoyed the book, so it's not something super deep. It's my personal story, a life lesson. It's just something you can pick up, read one chapter, and you might get inspired by something. So it's just something I wanted to put out there. It's kind of like a calling card to start the life coaching business and strategy. This was something that was concrete, where people can say, okay, oh, you went through this, and actually read it. And then it's so funny. I got the book and people read and they're like, she made these stories up. What? So it's just like, you can't win for losing. It's just like, oh my gosh, like, so I mean, it's funny, but yeah, it's just my personal stories and life lessons I learned from it, and things some of my coaches taught me. And so I think it's a good simple read. Just I don't know if you guys are familiar with devotionals, but just basic little short, things to inspire you and get you through a day, get you through the day.
Yeah. Again, sometimes that's all you need. So I'm definitely.
It's called, sorry, Dom. It's called At the End of the Day.
Okay, at the end of the day. So I know we saw when LaTanya sent it to me, and I was like, oh, I got to pick this up. So
So you mentioned Tony Robbins, but were there any other speakers that motivated you, or some of your favorite speakers coming up, thinking about getting into this line of work besides Tony?
Les Miles. One of my favorite, the Bohemian pastor, I can't think of his name right now. My dad's gonna kill me, but can't think of his name. But he passed away not many years ago. But there's been a lot of profound speakers, and my dad, obviously, first and foremost, has been very instrumental in being a big reason why I wanted to be a life coach. Because I always told him, like, Dad, I don't want to be a preacher. I'm not, like, please God, I pray every day, like, don't put that calling on my life. So my dad is just like, my dad has had one of the hardest jobs, and they are so hard on ministers and people in the church and the faith. And I want, like, my mission with life coaching, I like to call it faith coaching, but writing the book is kind of to debunk some of the notions and some of the things they say about church and faith. I mean, we're really hard on church and faith and ministers, and within the church there are problems and things that need to be addressed, but ministers really do help a lot of people, and they do provide encouragement, and prayer is a powerful thing. So I don't want to, people speak so negatively about it, but I see a lot of positive in it, from my family, and breaking generational curses. And then there are some problems. But they're so quick to be on ministers in the church as an organization, but these sports organizations and corporations can do so many terrible things, and their leadership can be so terrible. And it's like, because it's the church, people aren't human. You're gonna have bad apples everywhere. Okay, it's the police. You're gonna have bad apples. Coaches in college, you're gonna have bad apples. Coaches in the pros, you're gonna have bad apples. I mean, it's across the board. So just because you have a few ministers who abuse their powers, it shouldn't, it shouldn't debunk the notion of church and what God created for.
Yeah, for sure. And then how do you bring some of the motivational speaking and life coach tactics into coaching?
Oh, every day. Coach, Sandy calls me Reverend Melvin. She says, Chas is our pastor. Chas, what do you think? So, and DT's an atheist. She doesn't really believe in God. So we kind of have, she said, well, Chas, your book is about faith. It's okay. I'll read it just because you wrote it. So that made me feel
Wow.
good.
Yeah.
So it's cool. You know, I mean, I just believe that in any type of faith, I mean, I believe in Jesus ideals, but I think just, I don't think, I know that trusting in some type of higher power brings a certain form of peace. And I
Yep.
think people confuse sometimes seeing me as like, Chas is happy. All the girls be like, Chas is happy. Chas, you okay? What's wrong today? And it's more just of a peace. And I think that's what you can't explain about faith. You can't explain peace to someone, just like you can't explain being in love. And if you could explain peace, I think more people would want to have faith.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all it is. But so yeah, because Sandy always calls me Pastor Melvin, or she said, "Come on, Reverend Melvin, what you think? Say something." So it's in me. I can't knock it, but yeah. So, but I'm more on the life coach side. I don't want to have a church, and I don't want to be like. I love my dad, and he has been very instrumental in my life. But yeah, that you definitely have to have a calling for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's great.
And then God is your biggest judge if you're a minister. You
Yeah.
know, like, you can be the bad apple in the police and the boss, but when you're in the church, that's a high calling when you abuse that power.
Oh,
So,
100%. But it's great that you're able to bring that foundation into what you do, because I think that that's important. You know what I mean? No matter what somebody's foundation is, any type of, like you said, faith or believing, you know, in a higher power, it just like takes some of the pressure off of you. You know what I mean? So that is, I think,
or
important.
even non-believers, you know,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's not something I don't, you know, I think we're so quick to judge people and not give them the space to be who they are.
Absolutely.
And that's something I want to debunk about Christianity and growing up in the church. You know, I had a long talks with my dad about it, and I'm like, Dad, you know, my friends are different. And, you know, I traveled across the world, and I've been in countries where they don't have Bibles and they don't believe in God, you know, but they're still human. So for me, I was able to get outside of that box and understand what my faith does for me, but also respect people who don't believe in it, and not be like, oh my gosh, you know, judge them because they have their own opinion about life and where they are. So for me, that's something I really want to push, you know, because if God is who he says he is, he'll reach each and every one of us. And that's what our faith is based on.
Yep. And no matter what, you have to meet people where they're at.
Exactly where they are.
Like that's the biggest issue in our society. And it's just you jumping to, because somebody believes something, it's like you feel that you have to defend your, and it's a fight, instead of seeing that like we're all human at the end of the day, and we're all naturally going to have different things, but like do what makes you feel good to get through the day and to be a good person. And everybody else needs to just, it's the constant judgment that's what kills me about this. And it forces us to judge ourselves too. Like, no wonder a lot of people aren't happy, because they're looking at others based on how they look at themselves every day. So that's a whole nother tangent.
Other part,
Yeah, you certainly you know, gave us a lot of great gems, and we really enjoyed talking to you. I'm so impressed with just, you know, your career, how you've been able to parlay your career to still work in basketball, and then, you know, motivate others. So to leave us off, you know, well, we want you to give us a little inspiring message. You know, we talked about there's so much going on in our country right now. You know, people are struggling. We're dealing with police brutality, racism. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. We've talked to so many people. I mean, Paul and I transparently have had conversations about how, you know, we've gone through it. So for those who are struggling mentally and emotionally right now, like, how would you leave us with just giving us some words to inspire?
Wow.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Yeah, pressure's on. You didn't know you were gonna have to bring us home with this.
For those, you know, just, it's very mentally challenging for everyone. And what I would say is, where you are now is not where you're going to be. It's not the end of your story. This is another chapter in all of our stories individually. And we need to take this moment to look at ourselves and love ourselves. Like, this gives us a moment to just say, hey, let me be with myself and just really get to know who I am personally and love myself and find out. It's funny, my friend called me the other day, and they was like, I really found out who my real friends are during this time. And I think this is a time to regroup and assess your foundation and the people around you. And if you can't figure out who's really there for you now during this pandemic, no, you'll find out. You'll find out who really supports you, who really believes in you, who's really there for you, within your family and outside of your family. And it's just a chance to get to know yourself again, and it's a chance for you to overcome that fear, to create a new normal and create the things that you've been fearful about going after. I mean, we're out of jobs now. God has all given us something else we can do, something that we've been so fearful of, and also not being fearful, but you're in the grind of like, I'm going to work, I'm doing this, picking up the kids from school, picking up them from practice, doing this, doing that. Now, all you have is like, okay, that little voice saying, you should start this. You should call this person. You should have this meeting. You should write this poem. You should write this book. Now you have that, and you can really hear it because we're all silent. So I would go for it now. God's giving you time to do it now. Start it now, Just don't let fear creep in. But yeah, really just love yourself, love on you, love on the opportunity you have to still be here, because COVID has taken a lot of people, and figure out the time that you have with your family and friends during this time, where you can really learn about your foundation and what you want your foundation moving forward to be.
That was so good.
Well said.
Very well said. Very well said.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know, so much is going on in your life. So the fact that you were even able to take the time to join us is so appreciated. And again, with our platform, like, our goal is to, just shed light on so many amazing people like yourselves who are in this industry. So, we will continue to be huge champions of the W and everything that you all do. And if there's anything ever we can do to continue to support you, please know that we've got your back, and we're grateful for your time.
No worries. Yeah. Thank you, Huddle. Appreciate you guys, and keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. We'll send you the link when we post it, and we'll promote that and plug that book too. So
awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much
with everything.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.